At Primalhacker, we test, vet out, and experiment with only the best products on the marketplace. In fact, we recommend very few products. If there's a product that we're recommending in front of this podcast, it's because we've tried it, experimented with it, and found that it truly does what it says. And the benefit is so important, we want to share it with all of you.
What if I told you the most powerful biohack you're missing isn't another supplement or gadget? This might sound a little cliche, but the best thing for you and your body is sleep. But not just any sleep. Deep, restorative sleep that supercharges your mind and body. You're doing red light therapy, nootropics, cold plunges, but not hitting that quality sleep you need to feel refreshed in the morning? Lack of sleep can crash your cognitive function, slow your recovery, and wrecks your hormone balance. So how do we biohack sleep without pills or gimmicks? The short and simple answer is Soltex Sleep Solutions, the next level in sleep tech. It uses proprietary biofrequencies to guide your brain into deep delta wave sleep where real recovery happens. No chemicals, no side effects, just pure natural sleep optimization. And it adjusts in real time to your sleep cycles, creating a fully personalized experience every night. This isn't guesswork, it's science. Soltex frequencies help quiet the nervous system, reduce stress, and push you into that critical deep sleep stage. More sleep means faster recovery, stronger immunity, better memory, and yes, limitless energy. Imagine waking up fully charged every single day. How does that feel? You ready to unlock the next sleep level and transform your nights? Use our exclusive discount code to get 10% off your Soltex Sleep Solution. Don't just optimize your day, biohack your night. Sleep smarter and live stronger. This video is made by Primalhacker team, and we'll see you on the next level. Hey, it's Jackson. Welcome to the Primalhacker podcast, where we unravel the truth of the mind and hack your health. This episode and any episode can be found here or on YouTube. You can also check out primalhacker.com for glasses, merch, programs, anything else you may be looking for. Now let's get started with host Thaddeus Owen and co-host Heidi Simon.
Today we are going to talk about vitamin D, which you will learn through this podcast why it's actually not a vitamin. And you'll learn through this podcast why, in our opinion, and maybe yours by the end, we do not recommend and do not ourselves take supplemental vitamin D from a supplemental pill form based on what we've learned and how vitamin D actually works in the body. And you will also learn that vitamin D is not even a vitamin. Did I say that earlier?
Did you say what earlier?
That vitamin D wasn't a vitamin?
Yeah, you're being a little redundant already.
Now I'm redundant. Good. Repetition is key, everybody. Vitamin D is not a vitamin. Okay.
What is it?
Well, let's start out with what vitamin D is in the body. And it is a hormone, not a vitamin.
This is what vitamin D is in our body, not as what most people know of it, right? So
There's no such thing as vitamin D.
Okay. Hormone D.
There's a hormone in the body that is produced in a very specific way within our body, just like testosterone or estrogen or any of the other hormones. All of the hormones in the body are produced from cholesterol. So you need a sterol, which is a cholesterol. And from cholesterol, you make all the hormones. And everyone knows how important hormones are in the body because we go on hormone replacement therapy often as we get older to try to replace some of those hormones that keep us healthy and prevent us from aging too quickly and run all of these processes in our body. And D is one of those hormones made from cholesterol, like all the other hormones, and it is not, in fact, a vitamin.
All right. So what does that have to do with decon? Why is this the great decon?
Because you're going to learn today through this podcast some of the things that we've been researching that are really interesting. This is all information we're presenting to you in today's podcast that we have discovered about what the scientific literature and medical doctors and others call vitamin D, which is actually a specific form of a chemical that is put into supplements and added into foods to supposedly increase what we call vitamin D in the body. Now, we've learned a lot of things about this thing called vitamin D that made us not want to take supplemental vitamin D anymore, and that it's helpful for you to know. We don't recommend that if your doctor says to take what's called vitamin D, that you stop. We recommend that you talk with your preferred medical professional, as we are not medical professionals. We are simply going to present to you today some things we learned about what we call vitamin D and what actual hormone D does in the body, how it's used in the supplemental form, and what we found, as I said, encouraged us not to take supplemental vitamin D, but to get it in the most natural way, which is available to everybody for free. And the good news is you can get that stuff for free at a certain time of the year and store it for use the entire rest of the year. So you don't have to supplement. Let's say if you live in a northern climate in the winter, you can get it in the summer, which we'll tell you how in this podcast, and store it up to use it in the winter.
Okay, so my discerning, curious mind is going, wait a minute, Thaddeus, I've been told all this other stuff my whole life. Why should I believe anything that you're saying in this podcast? Or like, does my doctor not know what they're talking about? Or, like I have questions about all of these things. So I'm gonna be kind of presenting a bit of devil's advocate here with Thaddeus, you guys. And so my first initial thought is, wait a minute, I've always been told it's vitamin D. Why am I, why, like, how is it a hormone? Like, how does that even work?
I would say in the research that I've found, vitamin is just an interesting word in itself. Most people have no idea what vitamin actually means. And it's two terms. It used to be vital amine. There's some other breakdowns of that word that you can put together if you look at the etymology, but honestly, the word itself was created by a contraction of two terms that we thought were vital to biological life. And when we look at what vitamins have been isolated from foods, anytime you isolate those so-called vitamins, what we're doing, just like trying to isolate, you know, anything from the body, you're taking it out of context. So if you take, let's just say, vitamin C, which everyone knows and loves and thinks is great, if you take it out of a plant or an apple or whatever it is, it's now isolated all by itself. In the plant, the flower, the pine needles, wherever it's found, it's found bound to and with so many other compounds that help it give its effect to the body. And what we're learning is that most of what we call vitamins may not be isolated substances that work all by themselves. So if we, for example, if we're deficient in vitamin C, it may not mean that we need more vitamin C. And that's a big revelation to many people. It was for me at first as well. But if you think about it, if you're deficient in something, it's not necessarily that you're not taking that thing. It could be that your body is running through its vitamin C stores so fast because it's using them for something. And that if you figure out why they're being used so quickly, and I'm going to make this up completely. Let's say you have a cold and your body's like using a ton of vitamin C because it's quote unquote fighting the cold. that's why your vitamin C is low. It's not because you didn't eat enough, it's because the body is suddenly using it. And by taking a bunch of vitamin C powder all by itself, which is never how the body would have obtained that vitamin C from nature, you're just shoving all this white powder in your body, and your body's got to try to figure out how to use it out of context, where normally it would have come in with a fruit or a vegetable or meat or whatever it was, fully bound up in all these other substances, and then your body knows how to use it. It's in the right proportion, it's in the right ratio, and it's bound to these other things that help support those body systems that we're using up the vitamin C. So, what we do in medicine and modern science is we test blood levels for vitamins. And we basically say if the blood doesn't have as much of this vitamin as we think it should, you need more and you should supplement, is what we tell people. Well, again, supplementing with these vitamins, they act like drugs when they're isolated in a laboratory. And then we shove them back into the body in their pure form, which is what you're getting from all supplements. The body has never learned how to deal with them as isolated substances.
No, we can go back. So it says the medical community refers to vitamin D as vitamin because it can be deficient in the diet, but it's also more accurate to think of it as a steroid hormone.
Wait. So the very first thing you just read
Yeah.
says that vitamin D can be deficient due to diet. That's not how the body, like, have you ever heard that your body is deficient in estrogen because you're not eating enough estrogen in your diet? Have you ever heard that?
No.
So why would a hormone, which is what hormone D is, why would you be deficient because you're not eating enough of that hormone? That sounds ridiculous. Like science is trying to confuse you with the way that they're labeling this as a vitamin. And remember, a vitamin is a contraction of these two words. And honestly, what we're learning is that nature uses frequency and vibration to heal, to make things in their natural state and to not cause chaos. And you can use frequency and vibration to cause the opposite. So, what if vitamins were just frequencies on the musical scale that we would have normally gotten from sounds, nature, light? Light is a vibration and it's just a frequency. We could have gotten all those things, let's say, from light. And here's the thing about vitamin D. And think about the vitamins A, B, C, D. Those are all musical scales. And so, vitamin D, how do we naturally obtain vitamin D? Not from the diet. We naturally obtain vitamin D or hormone D from sunlight. That is the most natural way that we make hormones in our body called hormone D and utilize it appropriately. And any other form of vitamin D, quote unquote, vitamin D supplementation, which we will share in some of the literature, causes problems in the body that does not occur when we make it from sunlight.
So I mean, I just did a couple quick searches and they say, like they, as in ChatGPT or Google, it says that the best way to get vitamin D is from oily fish. It doesn't say anything about sunlight.
Yeah, so if you do what Heidi did is figure out like how should I get vitamin D? What's the best source? It doesn't tell you the sunlight and your own body. The very first thing that comes up on a search on your web browser is to get it from food and then a supplement. The more you can eat all the food you want, and you may not have enough vitamin D in your body to do what the hormone needs to be doing because your body is supposed to produce, just like testosterone and estrogen, your body should be producing those hormones, not eating them from food. The form you get in food will never be equivalent to what you can make in your own body. And it is extremely easy to make it in your own body.
Okay, so what about testing, Thaddeus? I've had testing done and it says that my vitamin D is low. So what exactly are they testing? And then what if say I do start taking the supplement and my vitamin D goes up? Like I mean, can you argue that? What
So let's just say if you took a blood test and it said your vitamin D was low. Well, first of all, that's vitamin D in the blood. That doesn't mean vitamin D in your organs or your cells. And that doesn't mean that just because the vitamin D in your blood was low that you are deficient. because they're comparing it against some sort of average of a bunch of people's blood they took to call it average. And average might be deficient, or it might be too much, or it might be meaningless. And I say it's completely meaningless in some cases because if for some reason I'm sick or I'm injured, my blood might take more, or it might make, our body can make vitamins, my opinion, that your body can make any peptide or vitamin that it needs from anything in nature. So if we need more vitamin D, or let's say vitamin B, sorry, we're on vitamin B. If we need vitamin B to do something at an injured site, like you injured your foot, your body's going to make the vitamin B, and it's going to shuttle it through the blood, that's the circulatory system, to the injured foot. So if you were to give a blood test at that point, you'd be like, oh my gosh, you have a lot of vitamin B in your body because it's shuttling it into the blood to get it to this spot in the body that needs it. Well, what if your body has sufficient amount of vitamin B and all the cells are happy? Then your blood wouldn't have a lower amount of vitamin B in it because it doesn't need to shuttle a whole bunch somewhere else where it's deficient in your body. So I think a lot of the things that we're doing with these testing, they're not telling us the full story. They're only telling us the levels of these vitamins, so-called vitamins in the blood. And to me, any blood test for the most part isn't giving you the information you want. If you had a hard workout the day before, maybe all the vitamin B is in the muscle cells repairing them, so it will look low. Maybe your cortisol, a hormone, will be high during that blood test because your body is stressed because it just ripped muscles by working out and it's repairing them. That doesn't mean that you have a cortisol problem. It just
Right.
means you just worked out. So I think the vitamin D tests, if you have low blood levels of vitamin D and you take a bunch of this supplemental pill form of vitamin D, your body might not want it. It might not know what to do with it. So it puts it in the blood to run it through the kidneys and filter it out. So if you were to test after you're taking a bunch of vitamin D supplements, your blood will have, let's say, this high level of vitamin D in the blood because it's trying to get rid of it, let's say. This is my opinion. And that might not mean that it's a good thing. In addition, the compound that they're testing for may not be the compound that you need in your body to do the work that they claim vitamin D does. When you take a synthetic form of vitamin D, and this is not my opinion, but it's held up by the literature, it does not do the same thing that hormone D does when you make it in your own body from the sun. And in fact, the chemical used to make the synthetic form of vitamin D that we put in all the vitamin D pills, it's called cholecalciferol. That in itself is toxic.
Okay. Let me just back up really quick. I have one more question around that. So when your doctor, naturopath, whoever it is, hands you the vitamin D and says, here, take this, it's going to help you. How much of that could be like the placebo effect of like your belief system in that thing, like actually creating the thing, right?
It could be all of it. And also, medical doctors do not get more than a couple hours of nutrition in their training. And so most of what they know about when they're recommending some of these things to you come from drug companies, supplement companies, advertising that's marketed directly to doctors to give them so-called studies and information and summarized in a way that the doctor doesn't have to read a lot of the literature and can easily make a decision that's supposed to be helping us heal and have optimal health. The problem is that a lot of the literature and the studies and the summaries the doctors see come from pharmaceutical companies and supplement companies. And so when they're giving you these things, the doctor is trying to do good for you, but they're not able to read all the research and study like how vitamin or hormone D is actually created in the body and why there's a difference, because the pharmaceutical and supplement companies have an incentive not to tell the doctor that there's a difference between the sun, which is free, and the supplement. So when you're given something, there is a placebo effect if you believe in it, for sure. This has been well studied. Although it would be safer to give somebody a sugar pill than a vitamin D pill because of the active ingredient that's in so-called vitamin D is a toxin And so that's why you can overdose on too much supplemental vitamin D, but you cannot overdose on hormone D from the sun. There's actually some unique benefits, which we'll talk about. When you're in the sun and your body has gotten enough hormone D from the sun, it does two unique things after that that no pill will ever be able to do.
Okay, that's super fascinating. I was also thinking about how when we were talking, just to go back to the testing piece and thinking about like how when women get tested for their hormones and you test one time a month or you do a Dutch test and maybe you test twice a month, it's still just one little snapshot. And I think like we get really fuzzy and like muddled about thinking, oh, I got tested. These results are what actually is. Well, no, it's like I think we always got to take some steps back from that and really analyze like, okay, well, how did I sleep that night? What was I eating? What was I, in that moment of time when you got tested, and your results can be different every single minute of every day in, in how do you say that? In ad infinitum. That's what I'm trying to say. Do you know what I'm saying? So like I think we got to like really step back and take like this big picture attitude with it and say, you know what, like maybe that's not exactly, and is it true for me, like as a health and wellness coach myself, like I'm always interested in like, yes, this is the science, yes, this is all whatever, but like is it true for me? And when I was tested, I'll just say myself for an instant, example, I was tested, I was low in vitamin D, and then, there was, okay, you can take this. It's so weird. I just intuitively was like, no. And I ordered it. I don't know why I even ordered it. It's so weird. I was just like, no, I'm not taking it. Do you remember that, Thaddeus?
Mhm.
So interesting. And I was just kind of like going back and forth, but like my hand would not unscrew the cap and take it. I don't know. It's so interesting. But just always tapping back into yourself, because everybody, we know ourselves better than anybody, right? And so you can also look into like muscle testing and other kinds of ways to test yourself, whether these things are helpful for you. But carrying on, I know we want to get into the goods of what the heck is cholecalciferol and why is it the great decon. So let's continue, Thaddeus.
Okay, so just a little bit of background on what they call vitamin D. There's something called the Vitamin D Council, which is where almost all of these vitamin D supplements started to spring from. And the Vitamin D Council was created in 2003 because a psychiatrist who was super excited about vitamin D created this council. And this council actively promoted the benefits of vitamin D to the public and physicians. So this wasn't physicians saying, we looked at all this research and vitamin D is so critically important. Here's how to get more. They would have told you to get it from the sun, which we'll talk about how to do, and it's free. No, instead, they were coached by this council to recommend vitamin D supplements. These were being promoted. That's like marketing and advertised to the public and physicians who were selling test kits to test vitamin D blood levels. So they had an incentive to sell test kits and then sell you a supplement when the test kit showed low D levels.
What was the time frame on this?
2003.
Okay.
So that's what I said in the beginning. 2003, this council was formed and started promoting and marketing. And then what happened is after we started studying these in the literature, these vitamin D supplements, um, the New England Journal of Medicine this year did the largest study to date of vitamin D supplements and tried to see if they protected against cancer and heart disease. And basically, the results were disappointing. They did not show that there were a benefit. In 2017, there was a review of all the cardiovascular benefits of the supplemental D, and they did not show any improvement in blood pressure or insulin sensitivity or any of that. And so as we look at the latest studies, the ones that are being done now after all this advertising and marketing was done and sold to the physicians, we're not seeing that the benefits are the same. But even though hormone D in the body has all these benefits, it's where you get it from that makes the biggest difference. So the active ingredient, that means the ingredient, like when you've got a tablet, which is the white chalky thing, Those are tablets. And then when you have a capsule, right? So it's like a gelatin cap filled with liquid. Both of those have excipients. So those are non-active. They're things like cellulose or other things the body doesn't really digest so that it holds everything together. The active ingredient is what does all the work, supposedly all the work. That's the drug. It's called the active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API, active ingredient for short. So I spent 10 years as a pharmaceutical research scientist. The active ingredient in vitamin D is cholecalciferol. So the active form, vitamin D3, is cholecalciferol. It's a synthetically created chemical in the laboratory that's put into big drums of like white powder or some sort of liquid solvent. And then it's added to these capsules, liquids, or tablet supplements. And cholecalciferol is the exact same ingredient in the rat and mouse poison called decon. Now, in some cases, that's not super scary because rats and mice are slightly different than men and women. So we react differently to things. What could kill one thing may not kill another. But if you look up just cholecalciferol, which is so-called vitamin D, you can look up a safety data sheet for the chemical companies that make it, and it says do not eat, can be fatal if swallowed, call poison control immediately. And it basically, what the SDSs, the safety data sheets, are saying that cholecalciferol does is it releases a bunch of calcium from the cells of the body. And that's in fact how they kill the rats and mice. They eat this little pellet that is made of like wheat, corn, and cholecalciferol. And then they flood the body with this calcium that kills the rats and mice. Same thing happens when men and women eat too much vitamin D. You take the supplement and you can get high calcium in the body, which is really bad. If you take too much vitamin D, it can be fatal. It can be very damaging to the body. So it is a toxin if you take a little too much. And the amount that you can safely take of the supplement, let's just say it's 1,000 IUs, international units. Any more than that could be damaging to some people. But when you sit out in the sun at the right time of day, you can generate up to 40,000 IUs of D in the body naturally and store that for use whenever your body needs it. So compare 1,000 IUs in a supplement to 40,000 in the sun, and one of them is 100% safe and the other one is not.
But Thaddeus, we've been told to stay out of the sun. It's not safe.
So if anybody still believes that, look at the 7 studies that have been done on the sun. One of them was just published last year. The people that stay out in the sun the longest live the longest and have lower causes of death from all causes. Every single study that's ever been done has shown that. That doesn't mean to go out and get sunburned, although some people claim that that's still better than no sun. Safe sun exposure, you can absorb hormone D through the cholesterol in your body that the sunlight attaches to generate the right hormone D in your body. You can do that safely within a few minutes during noon in the spring, summer, and fall, depending on where you live. It depends on the angle of the sun. The angle of the sun determines if there's the right ultraviolet frequency, the right vibration in the sun. It's the angle of the sun. And in the winter, the angle is not steep enough where we live, but in the summer, the angle is steep enough everywhere for the vibration frequency to hit your body and generate the hormone in your body in a very safe manner, in a quantity that's greater than you could ever take from a supplement. And you store it in your body for use when you need it later, like in the winter when you're not getting as much sun.
How long can you store it for? Like, always been curious about that.
You can store it indefinitely because it's stored in the fat. So if as long as you have some fat on your body, you are storing hormone D.
Oh,
It
I got a lot of hormone D in my body. I'm just kidding.
cholecalciferol is also very toxic to other animals, which is why it seems weird to me that cholecalciferol could be toxic to basically every animal except humans. And then if you look at an SDS sheet that's targeted to humans, because we can read them, to men and women, it's toxic. So if you look up cholecalciferol, right, it kills rats and mice. Like that's what it does. And then you look up dogs. So it kills mammals, which are rats and mice. Well, what about dogs? AVS for Pets website. So I just went to I just grabbed some random pet website. And I'm like, what would happen if a dog ate decon or cholecalciferol, vitamin D? And it says cholecalciferol is one of the most dangerous mouse and rat poisons on the market. Cholecalciferol, comma, otherwise known as activated vitamin D3, causes life-threateningly high calcium and phosphorus in the body, resulting in severe acute kidney failure, cardiovascular abnormalities, and tissue mineralization. This is a life-threatening disease. Even though this is a vitamin, the website says, it is toxic to dogs, cats, mice, and, wait for it, children. Okay, wait a minute. So this is a toxic chemical that will kill dogs, rats, cats, and children. Human vitamin D3 supplements taken at high doses are toxic via the exact same mechanism as decon. This is right from the website. It's not a conspiracy website. It is a pets website telling you why to keep vitamin D and decon away from your dog, because decon, the rat poison, is the exact same thing as vitamin D3, and it says it is toxic to your dog, cat, mice, and children. But you're being told to take it multiple times a day all year long. This is why, in our opinion, we thought it would be good just to shed some light on what is being said on the internet by different sites. None of these are conspiracy sites. This is the SDS of cholecalciferol made for supplementation in the lab and what it says. This is the PETS website telling you what happens. And you can even go to the Decon website by the people that make Decon to convince yourself and look up the active ingredient in Decon. And it is exactly the same as what's in vitamin D3 supplements. I am not saying that you shouldn't take them if they're benefiting you. All I'm saying is that, in our opinion, after reading these things, we will only get our vitamin D from the sun.
Okay, so I also looked on Google, or I asked Google, I said, what do doctors say about vitamin D supplementation? And it said vitamin D supplements can be helpful for some people, but should be taken in moderation. So here's the recommended intake. The National Academy of Medicine recommends 600 IUs of vitamin D per day for people's ages 1 to 7. That includes those children we were just talking about, does it
It
not?
does.
And 800 IUs for adults ages
So let's
70
just
and older.
so let's just stop on the IUs, international units. Remember, that's like 800. So vitamin D is so good, but you can only get 800 units. Look up, just anyone go look up how much vitamin D, because that's what they call it on the internet, can I get from the sun? And it's like anywhere from 10,000 to 50 or more thousand IUs. And obviously, it's very safe. Okay, let's keep going.
I thought this was interesting too, like 800 IUs for 71 and older. The Endocrine Society recommends vitamin D supplements for children and teens, pregnant people, adults with prediabetes, and adults ages 75 and older. So, didn't we, what did we look up before, Thaddeus? And it said something about
It
prenatal.
was on the SDS for cholecalciferol, and I think it had a warning for pregnant
That's
women.
right. It said for prenatal effects. That was like the #1 warning for cholecalciferol. But here, just asking Google, what's the supplement to take? And they're telling you the recommendation is for pregnant people. That's so crazy. So the next thing I asked was, is vitamin D made from the same source as decon rat poison? I thought this was really interesting because, as a, like a discerning person, like I'm going to raise questions because I question everything, right? And so I'm like, well, wait a minute. Is it actually the same exact chemical, or is there something I still don't know, or maybe we don't know about this, right? So we looked at this page, and this is again from Google, and it says So here my question is vitamin D made from the same source and as decon rat poison? And it said no. Cholecalciferol and bromoethylene are both active ingredients in rat poisons, but they have different mechanisms of action. Well, hold on, here's the next part. So it says, what is prescription vitamin D made from? And then the next line down, it says cholecalciferol is produced industrially for use in vitamin supplements and to fortify foods. As a pharmaceutical drug, it is called cholecalciferol, USAN, or cholecalciferol, NN, or BAN. It is produced by the ultraviolet irradiation of 7-dehydrocholesterol extracted from lanolin found in sheep's wool. So we looked up on, this is the part where we looked up on the SDS report. Okay, so we go into the SDS report, and what it said is this 7-dehydroxy, how do you say that?
7-dehydroxycholesterol.
No, it's dehydrocholesterol. There's no oxy part. Anyway, it says that it's the same, it's all the same thing from the same cholecalciferol chemical.
It's a synonym.
It's a synonym. Yeah. Can
So
you
it's the
just go
same.
through that a little bit? Sorry.
A synonym just means the same, but called by a different name. So a synonym for, I don't know, water would be like aqua or agua, right? They're both the name for water. They're synonyms. They're the same. So if you say cholecalciferol is also called whatever, 7-dehydroxycholesterol, something like that. They're the exact same chemical, but when you name a chemical, it has the same formula, which means it's exactly the same thing, the same exact chemical, but you can give it a different name. So people give these things different names based on Latin, based on how they're named by scientists in different countries, but they're all exactly the same thing with a different name. So what Google is doing in this case is saying that cholecalciferol and vitamin D are different because they just used a different synonym for the name. But look up the chemical structure of cholecalciferol, and it's the same no matter what you call it, because that's how the scientific notation works.
Okay, so if people are want to do this, like if I was listening to this podcast, I'd be like, okay, what do I look up? So you actually type in SDS space cholecalciferol, is that correct?
If you want to see the safety data sheet for
Okay.
cholecalciferol, most SDSs are required by law to list the chemical compound. So it'd be like how many carbons, oxygens, hydrogens. And they also have to list the synonyms. So if you look up cholecalciferol SDS, it'll list the synonyms, which are the same thing by a different name and the chemical formula.
Okay. So here Google is trying to confuse, not to get conspiratorial, but it's very confusing. I'm not a chemical engineer, like I don't know this stuff, right? And so I'm just trying to get to the bottom of like what exactly are we saying in this podcast? Because I think it's really important that people do your own research. And so asking the right questions I think is really important, right? And so how do we get to the answer that we're looking for? So you have to ask the right question. And then, so basically, Thaddeus, what you're saying is that is from a scientific standpoint, decon rat poison and your vitamin D supplement are the same exact chemical compound.
Exactly. There's no difference.
Okay,
None.
so mine was in a little vial that was liquid.
If you were to feed that liquid to a mouse, it would die. If you were to feed that liquid to your dog, it would die.
Okay.
They are the same exact compound. There is literally no difference other than in decon, they add some wheat and corn to make the mouse want to eat the poison.
Right. They had sugar too, I think. So let's get conspiratorial. Why why is it called decon?
So that's really interesting. Like as we were thinking about this podcast of what we were learning about vitamin D, we're like, oh, it's the big D con. It's like a con of what this vitamin actually is and does. And they actually call the product D-con. So like think about rat poison. You've always just called it D-con, right? Why is it called D-con? Because it's made with vitamin D. Like it's made with vitamin D. So it's D-con. I don't know what the con was supposed to mean when they originally made the rat poison bait, but isn't that interesting that they called it D-con? It's a big con that they're kind of pulling over people in our opinion. And what I want to read to you is a scientific study. So it's on the National Institute of Health. It was done at the University of California. Everything's on the up and up. And it actually says like D supplements probably aren't as good as sunlight. In fact, they may not work at all. But there's two interesting things here. One, the beginning of the study says vitamin D production in the skin under the influence of sunlight is maximized at sunlight exposure that does not burn the skin. So first of all, it starts off saying like we make vitamin D from the sun for free from ultraviolet B light, and you don't have to burn the skin to get it. Awesome. So then why are they giving you all these supplements and not just telling you that you can get it for free, a million times safer from the sun at a much larger dose, 40 times the dose from the sun? If vitamin D is so great, don't you want 40 times more? And don't you want it to be safe? So first of all, the scientific study tells you how to get it. And then they say, I just want to read this because I can't figure out how they're actually doing this study. They studied vitamin D in animals, and they say quoting, animal studies indicate that vitamin D has beneficial effect on cancers, blood pressure, heart disease, immunological disorders. Okay. But these non-skeletal effects have been difficult to prove in humans in controlled trials. So it's telling me two things: that giving humans vitamin D, we're not proving that it's doing any of the beneficial things that vitamin D supposedly does, because you're giving someone a supplement of a toxin potentially versus getting it from the sun. But number two, remember what you just heard. When you go to any website for dogs or cats or bunnies and ask if you can give them vitamin D or decon and it kills them, how did they do the animal studies? What animals did we use in the studies and feed them vitamin D? You couldn't have fed an animal vitamin D to do a study because it would have died. Like, it's rat poison and it kills dogs. So they definitely did not feed animals vitamin D to prove that it had a beneficial effect on cancer, blood pressure, heart disease, immunological disorders. They must have been exposing those animals to sunlight to make sure they got more vitamin D and then shown that they had all these benefits, because there's no way they could feed them vitamin D because it would have killed them, right? Doesn't that make sense? Like, if vitamin D is poison to these animals, then they didn't do a study where they fed them poison and showed that it helped them. They
Right.
must have gotten it from sunlight. And then they try to tell you that the animal studies show vitamin D does all these things. What they neglect to tell you is they probably gave the animal a natural form of vitamin D from the sun and not a pill form of vitamin D.
Hmm. Oh my God. Well, and just testing, remember we were looking at that other study and they showed like rabbit, dog, mouse, rat, like all the animals that they test on, all the pharmaceutical industry itself tests on so many animals and oh my God, and monkeys, right? Like I it just makes me so sad. It hurts my heart, that alone.
Yeah, so whenever you're taking these supplements and pharmaceuticals in order to pass the safety test, they have to basically feed them to animals. They have to cut open their skin and put the chemical there to see if it's going to irritate the skin. And then they end up killing these animals and taking tissue samples. I know people that work in this industry because I spent 10 years as a pharmaceutical research scientist. These are required by law. And you're basically killing all these animals to make sure the products are okay for humans. Meanwhile, you can get this for free from the sun and you don't have to have any of that stuff occur.
Ooh, okay. I have some other thoughts going through my head, but I don't want to go down too much conspiracy. I did look up decon, by the way, and it said that the original packaging, it was actually warfarin, WAR.
Warfarin, that's a heart drug.
Heart. Okay, it's a heart
So,
drug.
yeah, if you look up warfarin,
Yeah.
I don't know this off the top of my head well, but I do know that warfarin, common brand name, Coumadin. This medication, warfarin, is used to treat blood clots
Oh yeah. Okay.
and prevent new clots in the body. So I remember warfarin being a big drug in the 80s and 90s.
Well, it says that that was what they used. That was originally what decon was, and it says a reference to decontaminate.
Interesting.
That was the D dash con.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so it's a brand name for rodent poisoning, and the D in the name stands for the decontaminate, reflecting the idea the project is meant to decontaminate the area. Blah, blah,
Isn't
blah.
it funny that they call it decontaminate, but it actually uses vitamin D and they call it DE-Con. I think they're lying to you.
I think that, yeah, I'm like there it can't be, although, like I don't believe there are no coincidences, so it totally is reality itself giving itself away, as one of our friend Matt would say.
Now, of course, Matt McKinley from Quantum of Conscience on YouTube, if you want to check his stuff out. One of the things then of like, how do I get safe vitamin D and get the most from the sun? Uh, there's numerous studies, and it's sometimes hard to read sunlight studies on PubMed through the National Institute of Health. So I'll read a couple bits of one and then we can summarize it to make it really easy. So first of all, this is an abstract and it's called Sunlight and Vitamin D. And it's from the Department of Medicine at Boston Medical Center, Boston University. And yeah, both authors are from Boston University from the medical center. So this is not like fringe research. This is like standard research. And it basically says vitamin D is the sunshine vitamin. Hey, it's right there in the abstract. So that's all you need to know. It has been produced on Earth for more than 500 million years. During exposure to sunlight, 7D hydrocholesterol in the skin absorbs UVB radiation and converts it to pre-vitamin D3, which in turn isomerizes, turns into a different compound in the body called vitamin D3. These compounds also absorb more UVB radiation and are converted into a variety of products that also have helpful biological properties. So here's what happens. As long as you have cholesterol in your body, when you expose your skin to sunlight at the proper time of day and year, sunlight at dawn and dusk have no ultraviolet, you can't make vitamin D. Noontime sunlight is when you make vitamin D, when there's UVB in the sun. You can Google in your area when vitamin D can be made from the sun. And in our area and a northern climate, it's basically from April until the middle of October around solar noon, which is about noontime. Not at dawn, not at dusk, certain times of the day. You'll want to look up when UVB is in the sun or when you can make vitamin D from the sun. But when you make it from the sun, it creates the compound your body needs. And when your body has had enough, it stores all of that in your fat for use in the winter or when you're not getting enough sun. And when it's done making all those hormone D compounds in your body, it produces additional compounds that heal tumors and do all these other things in the body that the supplement does not do. So all of these things that the sun does naturally are so much better for us than taking a supplement. So regardless of whether the supplement truly is toxic or not, it doesn't matter. You get so much more benefit from the sun that there'd be no reason or point in using a supplement.
Okay, so while you were doing that, I just typed into Google, our friend Google again, and I asked this question. Why don't doctors prescribe sunlight for vitamin D deficiency instead of supplements? It's free. And this is what the AI overview came back with. It's so interesting because exactly what you're just talking about. It says doctors don't prescribe sunlight for vitamin D because there's no safe way to get enough vitamin D from the sun without increasing the risk of skin cancer. So the explanation says there's no scientifically proven threshold for sun exposure that safely produces vitamin D without, I just read that, skin cancer. Spending more time in the sun doesn't increase vitamin D levels.
What?
That's what it says. And then other ways to get vitamin D. This is the next paragraph down. It says take vitamin D supplements. And then it says eat food that are naturally rich, such as fish, beef liver, mushrooms, egg yolks, and cod liver oil.
That's so crazy because I'm looking at a study by the Boston Medical Group at Boston University, and even every article, every study that's ever been done, no one has ever claimed the sun doesn't make vitamin D.
So we need to train the AI overview, right? So then it does say then the next paragraph down is interesting too. Risks of vitamin D supplements. It says taking too many vitamin D supplements can cause hypercalcemia, which is the buildup of the calcium in the blood. And it can weaken bones, damage the kidney, and damage the heart. Symptoms are nausea, vomiting, increased thirst, and frequent urination.
So all the things you're trying to prevent by taking vitamin D, get healthier heart, stronger bones, you, you get those things by taking the supplement that you're trying to avoid if you take too much. And
Okay.
even in if you look at the SDS sheet, it says use over time is bad. So like
Mm,
repeated exposure, but what are you doing with a supplement? You're repeating your exposure to it. So again, not that all supplements are necessarily bad, and not that vitamin D specifically is something you shouldn't take. It's just, in our opinion, based on what we're reading, the facts are not adding up.
yeah. Absolutely. So, okay, but Thaddeus, I do want to address this issue about skin cancer. So, I know it's on a lot of, especially women, right? Like, we're told this over and over and over and over. Like, if you are exposing your skin to the sunlight, you are going to get wrinkles, you are going to get skin cancer, blah, blah, blah. Can you just kind of talk into that a little bit with the sunlight
You
stuff?
so number one, every study that's ever been done on the sun shows that exposure to more sun is associated with less death from all causes. Basically, people that have more sunlight die from less from anything. So, does sunlight cause skin cancer? It can, definitely. Like, there's no debate that sunlight can cause that. What is typically not presented when people say that is that of every other form of cancer that you could possibly get, skin cancer from the sun is the most preventable with safe sun exposure and the easiest to not die from. So, supposedly, curing yourself from skin cancer from the sun is rarely something that would cause death.
Right.
And it prevents cancer of all other causes for which the cures are not so safe or effective. So if you can prevent cancers of all other kinds, which are more dangerous, by slightly increasing your chance of a cancer that's largely survivable, that's a better thing that you're doing for your body. And the fact that all plants and animals on this earth get out in the sun. I mean, unless they're like underground animals, right? They all expose themselves to the sun without clothing, without sunscreen, without sunglasses. None of them do all those things except us. Now, can frequent sun exposure like cause more wrinkling? Maybe. But are you trying to look your best or are you trying to feel your best? So sometimes those things are just normal processes of aging. And in the society we live in, where you're supposed to erase all forms of aging, they may not be desirable, but they will still be beneficial long term, this sun exposure to your health and your biology.
Okay. So, I just had a thought, and I kind of want for you to not hold back at this point. Okay. So don't hold back anything. So what are we really talking about here? I mean, if you want to talk about conspiracy, doesn't this seem like conspiracy?
A lot of conspiracy could be made into conspiracy when it's really just the way the world works. So, I mean, it could be conspiracy like give your babies and your older adults more vitamin D because you'll kill them faster. Well, that might be a bad idea. Um, but a lot of this is just confusion because we rely so much on the science and we think it's infallible that we get a couple of studies that show us something and those studies were flawed or they were done completely improperly or they weren't the whole truth. And then we rely on those for the rest of our lives as the correct studies. And in fact, they were wrong all the time. So, A, it's that we don't do enough of our own research. B, we don't trust our biology and nature enough to heal us. We always want to go to these man-made synthetic things to make things happen faster. And that in itself causes a lot of issues. Like, could it be more conspiracy on like everything being related? It's the big D con. There's the product called Decon. It tells you right there that it kills children, dogs, cats, mice, rats. Oh, but it's safe for you. Totally fine for you to take. So I don't know. Like there's some weird programming going on in some of those things.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the conspiracy in itself is the opposite, right? So it's like, this is to me, this is the conspiracy. of like trying to get people to be confused and then take poison. Like what way is that even remotely okay for like I mean how did this happen? How does this happen? I mean, I know people that take this stuff.
Well, I mean, we used to use it in supplements all the time because that's what we're told. And you just hear these things, but without doing your own investigation into what you're actually putting in your body and that there's a safer way. So, regardless of whether small amounts of a toxin can be helpful, which they might, again, like a tiny amount of vitamin D as a toxin being helpful, you can only get 600 or 800 IUs from those little pills. You can get 40 or 50,000 from the sun. It seems like even if they were safe, you'd be better off getting it from the sun and it's free. You don't have to spend any money.
Okay, so what can we do? Like what is the opposite, like what are the things like I think taking whole food supplements comes to mind, right? Like I personally have eliminated just about every single supplement that I take, and it's now a whole food supplement, or I just supplement with food or sunlight. So what else do you have that people can do?
So get sunlight, expose your skin to the sunlight at the time when UVB is present so you can make vitamin D. Do it safely, don't get a sunburn, don't increase your chances of skin cancer, but this is honestly nature's way of providing you what you need. So take advantage of it. If you don't have enough hormone D and it's winter and you live in an area where you can't get it outside, there are other ways you can get it without taking a supplement. You can use a light supplement. So you can use a UVB lamp or a tanning bed. You can go to the tanning beds and make sure they have a UVB bulb in some of the bulbs in the tanning bed, and your skin will make vitamin or hormone D. Without taking any supplement, it'll come from the light, never as good as pure sunlight, but maybe a better way than taking a pill-based supplement. That this is how if we have lizards or snakes and you have a terrarium, you have to buy a reptile bulb
Oh,
to
yeah.
make sure that the reptile stays healthy. It's a vitamin D bulb. It's a UVB, ultraviolet B bulb that you put in the terrarium so that your lizard can make hormone D in its body. We don't feed it a supplement. We give it light. Same thing that we should be using,
So look to nature, right? Look to the animals. What do you do with animals? What do you do with our own trees and plants in your garden?
right?
It's like it's easy, it's simple. It doesn't have to be so complicated.
There's the famous Dr. Jack Kruse example where if you cover an orange tree with a tarp, what's going to happen to the orange tree after a couple of weeks? It'll be dead. So when you cover yourself with sunscreen, clothing, sunglasses, and hats, and you're outside, you're not getting what you need to thrive. And therefore, then we need pharmaceuticals and supplements to try to recreate what we lost. If you simply just absorb some natural sunlight, we can largely prevent a lot of these things doing it safely.
Yeah. Okay, well, do we have any final thoughts or should we wrap from here? Is there anything else you want to
I I'm only going to share one last thing. This is from a study called Sunlight and Vitamin D, a global perspective, National Institute of Health, University of Boston, Boston Medical School. And it says uh, during exposure to sunlight, after pre-vitamin D3 is produced, it will absorb UVB radiation and isomerize into two products. Neither of these two products has any effect on calcium metabolism. So remember, the cholecalciferol has an effect on calcium metabolism dangerously, especially if you take too much. Whereas the sun creates compounds after you've made enough vitamin D that don't affect calcium metabolism and, in fact, have beneficial effects in the body. So, again, it's all in the literature. I know people don't like to read the literature, and that's why we do it, and we can bring some of that to you. And there are advertisements from the 1930s telling you how to safely give your baby sun exposure, and that people with darker skin need longer sun exposure to make the same amount of D as people with lighter skin. So again, your skin color changes how much sun time you should have to make a sufficient amount. The time of day and the time of year all affect the amount of time and how much D can be made in the body. So it's helpful to look it up. There are apps out there like D Minder, which will tell you when you can make D and how much you're making in a sun session. Those can be helpful for many people as they're getting started.
What about the sun lamp, the spurty lamp? Is that, I mean, would you recommend that people
That's
in the
what we
north,
just talked about.
no, it
Yep.
just, I mean, mostly for people in the north in the winter, right? Is that, or is it like anybody?
Well, if you're not in the north and you can get outside and you're in the south, get outside. It's always going to be better than an artificial man-made light.
Absolutely.
But if you're in the north and you don't get down south during the winter, the man-made light is probably better than the supplement, far better.
Cool. All right. Well, I think it's time to play racquetball.
All
All
right.
right.
The other thing I guess I would say is there are some newer studies showing that supplementation with D through pills can increase cholesterol, whereas D creation in the skin from the sun reduces cholesterol levels. So those are other things that could be helpful for people that are looking at cholesterol, but the story is it's safer and far superior to get your D from the sun, and it is a hormone and not a vitamin.
And it's free.
And
Like,
it's free.
what else can we ask for? We have everything we need. We're so abundant. All right, you
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you. Yep. See ya.